Footballtribeug channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday. It's still a Friday morning, just a couple of minutes running down to the clock to midday. I hope you're enjoying the month of Ramadan and Lent period, depending on what side of the aisle of the religious aisle that you do follow on. Anyways, yesterday we did witness the UEFA Europa League, and of course the UEFA Conference League is there, but in our limited time, oftentimes we've not given it the attention it does deserve. But probably it's reasonable because it is the footnote of the UEFA, competitions. The UEFA Champions League being the premier of that one, and we did discuss that one extensively yesterday. You can check out our episode from yesterday's live broadcast, and today we get to dive into the UEFA Europa League. Now, we'll start things off with arguably what was my best game of the night, that's on Thursday night, as Atletico Bilbao beat up against AC Roma by 3-1 to advance to the quarterfinals of this UEFA Europa competition. Very interesting game. Of course, AC Roma were under the charges of Claudio Ranieri, who was pulled out of retirement, I think in the aftermath of his stint at Fiorentina, to come and guide them forward. Was on the touchline, while Ernesto Valverde, a man we all know, did make his return to Athletic Bilbao following his stint at FC Barcelona and that kind of thing, was in charge. But it was a very, very interesting game, one that, of course, Roma did pull one back, but it was a little too late. It was a penalty taken, I think, deep in stoppage time. So they did not have time to try and salvage the game, to try and push it maybe into extra time, that kind of thing. But a very entertaining game, of course, that we did witness, but it was quite unfortunate. Of course, Roma did suffer a red card in that one. Mats Hummels getting a red card early on as early as the 11th minute, and that put them under an enormous disadvantage, kind of similar to the events that we saw in yesterday's game between Aston Villa and Club Brugge, because I think it was Saliba or Salibi, forgive the pronunciation, who got a red card for the Club Brugge side in the 17th minute. So it was similar to that. Mats Hummels given a red card in the 11th minute of the game, and Roma were down to that disadvantage for the rest of the game, and they went on to lose that particular game. Nico Williams with a very spectacular goal in that one, especially I think for his second goal of the day. For me, was the better goal, the way he does take control of that ball, and of course, he receives a short pass, but the way he dribbles past those players to slot it beyond the goalkeeper's reach was quite sublime for me in that finish. So, Nico Williams did pick a burst in this one, while Batiche was the other on target for Atletico Bilbao. Batiche did score a brilliant header of a corner kick, and that set piece, Roma did defend well, but I thought they gave him the gap to get ahead onto that ball, and it did hit the back of the net. So it made the tie at that particular moment 2-0. But Nico Williams extended that to make it 3-0. And like I said, the Roma through Leandro Paredes did score to what merely turned out to be a consolation on the night, as it ended 3-1. So Roma Roma getting knocked out. They had won the first leg, like I mentioned, by 2-1. Yes, by 2-1. They had won the first leg by 2-1. So in this particular fixture, they get to win it by 3-1 and knockout Atletico Bilbao win this one 3-1 and knockout Roma 4-3 on aggregate score. That was the result. Anyways, in the other result, Eintracht Frankfurt, the German side, are knocking out Ajax. Ajax have had a very poor season. They got knocked out 6-2 on aggregate, yesterday being beaten by 4-1 by Eintracht Frankfurt. One of those teams that you deem to be favorites in this competition because it's one they've won before. I mean, as far back as was it 2022 when they won it under the charges of Oliver Glasner, who is now in charge at Crystal Palace. Yes, so that kind of thing. So they do have the advantage in this one. And then Atletico Bilbao also are one of the favorites because of their manager, very experienced manager in Ernesto Valverde. They've been known to go deep in this competition. For those of you that do remember Atletico Bilbao under the charges of Marcelo Bielsa, that was back in 2011, 2010. They did beat up against Manchester United in that particular season, home and away, when Ferguson was still in charge at United. We're talking about an Atletico Bilbao side that was under the charges of Marcelo Bielsa. They had the likes of Fernando Llorente leading that forward line. They had the likes of Ibai Gomez, Oscar Di Marcos, Ika Munayin, this defender, Javi Martinez. Yes, one of those players that was in that team. So clearly, for me, I do think that Athletic Bilbao and Eintracht Frankfurt do have the advantage or the history in this competition. And then, of course, we will see United. It's a competition that United have won as not so far back as 2017 under the charges of Jose Mourinho. Speaking of Manchester United, they did knock out Real Sociedad. Real Sociedad getting a red card in that one again, but I thought United were the better team over both two legs. They deserve to go through. Of course, so many penalties. We had as many as what, 3 penalties in this particular fixture, and one had to be overturned by VAR yesterday. So, and that kind of thing. But Manchester United were the better side for me yesterday. I want to give a note out to Casemiro. I thought he was very good on the day. There's a moment where I think it was Diego Dalot that gets beaten by by a Sociedad player, and his Casemiro's quick recovery did save United. And then we cannot, not talk about Eindhoven. Of course, the manager there, Ruben Amorim, says that when you prove yourself both in training and on the turf, then you earn yourself a starting, slot. You earn yourself the right to play to get in the starting 11. And the youngster in Eindhoven, the 18-year-old there, who they just signed in January from Arsenal, did have a very good game. And then, of course, Patrick Dogu recently also signed in January, one of those players that had a very good game. So, of course, all their processes, all their, industriousness was completed by the sleeky captain in Bruno Fernandes. That one did convert 2 penalties, and then of course scored the other to complete his hat-trick on the night in what I believe was a very good day in office for Manchester United. But of course, Real Sociedad got into the lead through Oyarzabal. This one also scored from the penalty spot. Matthias de Ligt, the suspect there in causing that penalty. Remember, in the first leg, United led and led on in the game. Again, Real Sociedad equalized through a penalty that was scored by the same player, Oyarzabal. So it was a bit of a similar incident. And then on the other side, United win 2 penalties, one in either half, and Bruno Fernandes captain stepping up there to combat those. You had Aramumburu, yes, Aramumburu. That's the player that caught himself sent off. It was for a last minute, tag on Patrick Dogu, because United get played in on a counter, and he's just slightly beyond the center line, and Aramumburu takes a tag on him, and then their legs tangle, and Patrick Dogu hits the floor, and then United Real Sociedad are reduced down to 10 men in that kind of sense. So Anyways, United do advance 5-2 there on aggregate score, but of course the other was Diego Dalot that completed that 4-1 match on the day for the Red Devils as they advanced to the quarterfinals of this UEFA Europa League competition. Like we've discussed before, it is their only route back into European competitions, especially the UEFA Champions League. If they can go ahead and win this competition, the next season we could see them in the UEFA Champions League. Do they deserve to be where they are? Most definitely they do. Most definitely they do. Never mind that things have not really gone for them really well, but after a brilliant performance in their 1-all draw against Arsenal over the weekend, a game I thought that they should have won had it not been for the heroics of David Raya in the Arsenal goal, and of course the under delivery of their strikers, specifically Rasmus Højlund, and then Mazzarri, of course, missing the golden opportunity in that particular game. United could have easily won that game 3 or 4-1 on the night. So after that brilliant performance, they carried on the same performance into this particular game and got themselves a 4-1 victory on the night that sends them into the quarterfinals. So a brilliant day in office for United as they do advance. The other game, we did see Victoria Pilsen share the spoils with Lazio in a 1-all draw, but Lazio had won the first leg, I think, by 2-1. Yes, so because now they advance on a 3-2 aggregate score. So we'll see who these teams do first at the quarterfinal stage. Then the other we had Bodo Glimt knockout Olympiacos, that's from Greece. They were knocked out 4-2 on aggregate score. Yesterday, Olympiacos winning the game by 2-1. So by that result, it wasn't enough for them to advance to the next stage. And then, of course, we had Rangers knockout Fenerbahce. Now, for a team that is managed by Jose Mourinho, this is nowhere near what we had imagined. But them having lost the first leg, Fenerbahce won the first leg was it 3-1? I think, yes. Fenerbahce won the first leg. Sorry, Rangers won the first leg by 3-1. And then yesterday, Fenerbahce beat Rangers by 2-0. And guess what? Fenerbahce being away from home. Now, the expectation or my prediction personally had been that Fenerbahce will get, advance to the next stage. Not that it would have been a walkover, but because of the element of the manager himself in Jose Mourinho, unfortunately, they couldn't get past the post-match penalties that they did lose, taking those horribly, poorly. Rangers, advancing on a 3-2 victory on penalty shootouts. So that was the other result. Then Tottenham Hotspurs, having lost the first leg by 1-0, they did pull themselves back to win 3-1 yesterday's fixture in a game that I thought Dijad Space was quite brilliant, very brilliant youngster there. Dijad Space, very, very good player there. He's one of those purpose players for Tottenham Hotspurs. Of course, Wilson Odebat was on target for Tottenham Hotspurs. Dominic Solanke, a turning provider for that one, while James Maddison did score the second to make it 2-0 at this time. Captain Son Heung-min providing the assist. Wilson Odebat picking a brace in this particular game, with Dominic Solanke also picking a brace of assists. Then, of course, how do they pronounce this name? Coop Miners. Yes, Coop Miners is the one that scored what turned out to be the only consolation for AZ Alkmaar there as Tottenham advanced. Now, for those of you that may not remember, Ange Postecoglou said he always wins a trophy in his second season. Now, having been knocked out of all the other competitions, domestic cups, that's the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. This is his only opportunity of a piece of silverware because we all know he's not going to win the Premier League anyway. So this is his only chance to deliver on that promise or to continue with that luck, always win a trophy in his second season. So clearly, he gave himself a chance, and they are well coming back. You know, lots of players from that have been on injuries, so that gave them the good starting level that they managed to field because they had their number one goalkeeper in goal. That's Guillermo Vicario. They had Pedro Porro, Christian Romero, Mickey van de Ven returning from injury, Dejad Space in that right back position, Pematsa. This one scored on the weekend in their 2-2 draw against FC Bournemouth. Then Lucas Bagville, James Matson, Wilson Odebat, Dominic Solanke, and Son Heung-min. That was a very strong lineup that I really fancied them to go ahead and win this particular game. And should they manage to retain the fitness of that starting 11, then they could go really a long way in this competition. Of course, you'd have to welcome back the likes of Dejan Kulusevski to give you, even an even better chance of then Dominic Solanke has to get back to his scoring ways and all that kind of thing for them to be able to advance further into the competition. Then Lyon did knock out FC CBS 7-1 on aggregate, beating them yesterday by 4-0. Lyon is one of the strong sides in this competition. We're talking about a team that has a former Arsenal striker that is in Alexander Lacazette. Yes, for those of you that do remember, he was in this particular. He is in this particular side. So clearly, we do 7-1. They won the first leg, 3-1. So yesterday they won that one 4-0 for them to advance to the quarterfinals. They also have an Ainsley Maitland-Niles, another former Arsenal player, in their ranks there. So Lucas Perry was in their goal, but again, it's Lyon, given their experience, especially on the European continent. When it comes to cup competitions, sometimes beyond the pedigree, it becomes a tie of one, luck, very important. Two, your ability to exploit moments, because sometimes the margins become smaller and smaller as the competition advances. So as we are going to see for the quarterfinal fixtures and what that means. So very, very tricky fixture there. So those were the results from the knockout stages for the round of 16. So the teams that did advance is Atletico Bilbao, Eintracht Frankfurt, Lazio, Bordeaux Glimont, Lyon, Manchester United, Rangers, and Tottenham Hotspurs. So what does that mean for the quarter-final stages for the Europa competition? Bordeaux Glimont will be up against Lazio. The first leg will be played on 10th April. Yes, 10th April. So Lazio will be away from home. And then Lyon will be up against Manchester United. Manchester United, brace yourselves for this one. Yes, I know you do perform well against French opponents, but this could be another hard nut to crack for you guys. So Manchester United up against Lyon. Then Rangers will be up against Athletic Bilbao, while Tottenham will be up against Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, which one is the toughest fixture of these? Lyon versus Manchester United, of course, is the biggest fixture. And then Tottenham versus Eintracht Frankfurt. I think we'll have a very entertaining game on our hands for that particular fixture. But whoever advances between Lyon and Manchester United will all face off with whoever advances between Rangers and Athletic Bilbao. And then whoever advances between Lazio and Bordeaux Glimont will face off with whoever advances between Tottenham Hotspur and Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, should United and Atletico Bilbao both advance, you in this 24. Now, that competition was eventually won by Atletico Madrid. For those of you that remember, I think it had the likes of Randamel Falcao, Garcia Zarate in that side, and then the likes, I think, of Thibaut Courtois maybe in goal. So that's the team. So, but Bilbao, for me, I would fancy an advancement of Manchester United and Athletic Bilbao, so that we have that do-over. Now, that's one of the fixes that I saw Sir Alex Ferguson really rattle, because they were beaten home and away by them. Like I said, Athletic Bilbao at the time being under the charges of Marcel Bielsa, it was they had a very young team at the time, but that young team could run at you like no other team had seen. They were quite very impressive. Like I said, the likes of Ibai Gomez, Ikamunain, Ander Herrera, and that's where Ander Herrera really impressed Manchester United in tracking him. So it was a very, very, very impressive sight. And then, of course, they had Fernando Llorente leading that line. And, you know, very, very interesting side. So me, I would like a repeat of that particular fixture. Maybe there are settles to score along the way, but those are the fixtures that you should expect from the finals of the UEFA Europa League. Now, we cannot go ahead without giving a mention to Chelsea there from their, efforts in the UEFA Conference League. Let's see if we can find yes, Chelsea are beating up against Copenhagen by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Dewsbury Hall. Now, one of those players that Enzo Maresca signed with a lot of expectations, having the player having played under him last season at Leicester City, but he's hardly put a mark on this. But Chelsea advancing their 3-1 into the competition there, so they do get to Chelsea have a chance of silverware. And by the way, here's the catch for Chelsea. If they win the UEFA Conference League, then they can qualify directly to the Europa League. Now, should things fail in the Premier League for them to finish in the top 4 or even in the top 6, then clearly they will have landed themselves a slot. But what will be most important will be the piece of silverware that they can, garner from this competition, because for such big teams, winning a piece of silverware is quite very, very important. So, let's wait and see what all it means. We'll be discussing other things. There's a bit of transfer rumors and speculations at Manchester United. The writing is on the wall that Victor Lindelof, Christian Eriksen, Joel Hatto, all those will leave the club. Johnny Evans could potentially exit. Casemiro, Rashford, Jordan Sancho, there will be negotiations, but those will also leave the club. At Arsenal, following the appointment of Andrea Beta as their new technical director, as their new sporting director, rumors have started to heat up there. There are mentions of Martin Zubimendi in addition, and apparently he does want to also sign Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle. There have been reports that the player has an agreement with the club that should they fail to qualify for the UEFA Champions League, he can leave for about £70 million. But also reports do suggest that Manchester City are really interested in the services of Bruno Guimaraes. While they signed, while they wait for Lobby to come and to return from injury, and while they sign Nico Gonzalez in January, and they have a reverse winner, they could really use an addition in that midfield. Then, of course, still as far as Andrea Beta is concerned, there is speculation that only his priority list of transfers, you want to bring Nico Williams. But again, most of these are names that we've already mentioned in Arsenal's ultimate transfer wish list for the summer. Do go check it out on the channel for those of you that have not yet watched it yet. And then, of course, yesterday still, the Athletic's David Ornstein did come out to reveal that Alexander Isak was top Arsenal's wish list for a striker, but whether they can pull that deal off remains to be seen. We all know that Newcastle are very intent on trying to build their team around Alexander Isak, around Bruno Guimaraes, around Steven Botman, around Anthony Gordon. All these are all players that have been looked at by big clubs. Anthony being with the move to Liverpool. Liverpool, by the way, also interested in the services of Alexander Isak. So clearly, there's competition for their players. Whether they can keep a hold of them, that remains to be seen. So as we, move towards the first bit of the current season, do look out for that transfer speculation. It will continue. Then Manchester United's project of a new stadium, for those of you that do not know about it, do check out a short on the channel. We did discuss it. Has come under criticism from Paul Mason, who says that, first of all, United already have the biggest stadium in the UK. I mean, it's a 70,000 seater stadium. Why are they trying to invest in building a new stadium when they could use that money to invest in their squad and try to be competitive again and try to win major trophies again? Remember, the last time they won a major trophy, that is the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League. They last won the Premier League back in 2012-2013 season. As far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, I stand to be reminded, but they last won that one in 2008, beating Chelsea on penalties in Monaco. Of course, they did play other two finals. In 2009, they got beat by Barcelona 2-0. For those of you that remember, Lionel Messi had a shot. Lionel Messi, getting a headed goal past Edwin van der Sar goal, but jumping higher than Rio Ferdinand to head that ball home. And then, of course, in 2011, they did get back to the finals of the UEFA Champions League and still lost to Barcelona, I think by 3-1, a game in which we saw Sir Alex Ferguson shivering on the technical bench. I remember, I think it was Ryan Giggs being cornered in a triangle by Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta, and then he had to call on the likes of, I think, Michael Carrick to come and help post calls. So, yeah, ever since then, they've gone on to win the Europa League. That's 2017 under the charges of Jose Mourinho, and that's why, they do have their pedigree on the European scene, so they can go ahead and win the Europa League. The others have been domestic cups, of course, winning the FA Cup twice. That's in 2016 and last year, 2024. And then, of course, winning the Carabao Cup 2017 and also winning it at 2023 in Erik ten Hag's first season. And things of that nature. So clearly, Paul Mason does question what's the intent of trying to build a very big new stadium, and yet they can, get that money, reinvest it in the squad. We all know the lackings in their defense, the midfield rebuild that is required, and then that fourth line, Rasmus Højlund. Yesterday, could only manage to win a penalty, couldn't get to score. Joshua Zirkzee, for Joshua Zirkzee, it's his only first season, so I do not really want to put it on him, but to try and find a creative midfielder, players that can create United more chances and that kind of thing. They need a winger with Rashford. Speaking of Marcus Rashford, again, the Athletic revealing through David Ornstein that the 27-year-old England international is braced himself for an England national team call. The last time he had been summoned for international duty was back in, I think, March 2024. Yes. So it's been almost a year with absence. Jack Grealish, that one has been frozen out because just a couple of weeks. Was it last week, by the way? He was seen stumbling out of the club. Things are not really. He's been out of form this season. It's not a season that is on his way. Speaking of Jack Grealish, he's one of those 7 players that Man City will be letting go in the summer. Again, we discussed the players that Man City will be letting go this summer. That's John Stones, Ilkay Gundogan, Jack Grealish, Ederson Morales, Kyle Walker, you know, all those. We did discuss that in another episode on the channel. Go check it out. Go check out that content. But as you do check it out, do not forget to like, comment, and share so that our content can be recommended to other football fans across the globe. Then so that's it for now. For me, again, maybe before I go, I've been following a bit of conversation in the aftermath of Arsenal fans knowing that they are going to face off Real Madrid. Now, it's a team they've knocked out twice. They have a very good home record. They've played nine games at home in the Champions League this season? Is it 24? No, is it 9 games? No, not 9 games. But for all the games they've played at the Emirates Stadium, they've only conceded 2 goals. And we spoke about that yesterday. So their defensive strength versus Real Madrid's strength. I saw a little kid on TikTok. I think the kid was in the car with the mother, and I do not know where they were driving to. Maybe they were driving the kid to school. And of course, they were talking about this particular fixture before we determined who advances between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. So they were speaking in sort of hypothesis. And this kid looked about 4 or 5, but his football knowledge was quite impressive. And he was saying that for him, he would be better off Arsenal first off with Atletico Madrid. He fears Real Madrid because, one, they have the pedigree, they have the luck, the UEFA Champions League. He mentioned the likes of Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, and he says Arsenal's only chance is if Bukayo Saka can be fit and back and available for that particular fixture, that they would need Bukayo Saka if they have to have a chance, as Martin Odegaard faces off with his former bosses, Dani Ceballos on the other side, but that one is injured. So we will try to monitor that conversation. But you Arsenal fans, you Manchester United fans, the Chelsea fans out there, those of you whose teams are still in these European competitions, do not forget to engage us in the comment section. And for those of you that wish to be hosted on the channel to speak all matters football, do not hesitate to reach out in our comment section, in our inbox, and let's chat it all up. Otherwise, allow me to leave it at that and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Stay blessed. See you next time.